I played through the first Pikmin, but for every Pikmin that I lost, I pulled a workout from my magical Pikmin bucket.
Simple, right?
Well, it was a bit harder than I had imagined. Let me give a quick explanation of the challenge. At the end of each day, the game shows a stat of how many Pikmin you lost for that day. I would turn those Pikmin into a workout from a list that I would pull out of a bucket, with jumping jacks being pretty easy and burpees being very, very difficult. My goal is to complete the game in 15 days or less, as I've actually done this before on stream and just barely missed the 15-day mark. So let's get into it and see how I did. This was my first time playing the Switch port of the game, as I grew up playing the original GameCube version. I tried to use a GameCube controller, but something fell off with it, so I stuck with the Switch Pro controller and cleaned up the first day, getting used to the controls and picking up the first part, the main engine. The Forest of Hope is a relatively welcoming area with weaker enemies and simple obstacles. Heading into this stage, the first thing you should always work on is getting the yellow Pikmin as soon as possible. I was mainly focused on getting yellow Pikmin sprouted while opening up the area rather than gathering parts on this first actual day, only picking up the Eternal Fuel Dynamo and the Nova Blaster. I ended the day with 0 Pikmin lost, meaning I wouldn't have to start working out. Yet. With much of the area opened up on day 3, I started working on grabbing parts. I started with the Shock Absorber, Whimsical Radar, and the Extraordinary Bolt, which unfortunately had me losing my first Pikmin due to an error using the bomb rocks that the yellow Pikmin carry, losing 14 Pikmin pretty quickly. Poor souls. The rest of the day was spent populating, and after going to sunset, I had my first workouts, which were 14 squats that weren't really that bad at all. With 5 ship parts collected, we upgraded the ship and opened up a path to the Forest Navel, and began to enter the more difficult stages of the game. The Forest Navel is a step up in difficulty and can cause some players trouble. It has a lot of pathways that need to be opened in order to speed up the collection process, along with the area being more dangerous than the previous. Being set in a dark cave with tougher enemies and environmental hazards, I like to open up some of the crucial paths while dealing with problem enemies that block key routes. The fiery blowhogs, wallywogs, and these weird bug things are threats that can defeat a lot of Pikmin if you aren't careful. While working on the enemies and the blockades, I collected the space float, the gravity jumper, and found the blue Pikmin. I think it's time that we talk about the Pikmin. Each Pikmin has their own advantage. Red Pikmin are fire resistant and do the most damage. Yellow Pikmin can carry bombs and be thrown incredibly high, and blue Pikmin can breathe underwater, which will become mandatory for certain ship parts. To end day 4, I only lost 2 Pikmin, but accidentally skipped the end stats. I got knee pull-ins, which is a workout I actually had no idea how to do, and did 5 as a guess, which was a little over the 2 I actually had to do. Since I had blue Pikmin, I headed back to the Forest of Hope for day 5, as I like working through stages one at a time. There were some new paths that I could open up thanks to the blue Pikmin, and I started working on those right away. With the path to the upper area now open, I fought the Armored Cannon Beetle, which I messed up pretty bad on, losing 21 Pikmin right away. But I defeated the bug and collected the Radiation Canopy and Sagittarius to close the day out. I reached into the bucket and pulled out 21 high knees, which were honestly pretty weird looking back on the recording. I stuck to the Forest of Hope and headed back to finish off the last part, being the Geiger counter. I used this trick to push the box without blue Pikmin and defeated the burrowing Snaglet, losing 7 Pikmin in the fight to get the Geiger counter. I spent the rest of the day evening out my Pikmin population for the later areas and pulled 7 lunges for day 6. After finishing off the Forest of Hope, I headed back into the impact site for a quick day, grabbing the Positron generator, a pearl for the yellow Pikmin, and flowering many of our other Pikmin. We now had enough parts to upgrade the ship for the next landing site, but not without losing a Pikmin to the clam, which got turned into a single push-up. Day 8, I headed back into the Forest Navel to finish up the areas I started before taking the new landing. Since it had been a few days since our last visit, many of the enemies respawned, so I took care of them to not cause any problems later. The day was spent mostly clearing paths and enemies, only collecting the automatic gear and ending with 7 push-ups. I started off day 9 grabbing some of the water exclusive parts, like the anti-dioxin filter and the #1 Ionium jet, being very cautious of the Wollywogs that can easily annihilate mass amounts of Pikmin. We started working our way through this narrow path with fire that can cause a lot of trouble if you're not prepared. Luckily, there was no problems, letting me finish the day getting the analog computer and Libra, and for the first time in a while, 0 deaths. However, this luck would not last, as the next day ended in disaster. On my last day in the Forest Naval, disaster struck. I had 2 bosses to take care of, the Puff Stool and more importantly, the BD Longlegs. The Puff Stool is a pretty easy fight, and I really only had trouble with this Wollywog and Flame as I didn't take enough red Pikmin. I got the Omega Stabilizer without much trouble, but I actually started off the day working on the guard satellite from the BD Longleg. You see, it's pretty important to get your Pikmin underneath the boss so that you can spam your Pikmin at it safely in the center, but I didn't do that. When the fight started, he instantly landed on what I thought was a ton of Pikmin, which distracted me from when he actually moved and did stomp on a ton of Pikmin. For the rest of the fight, I was panicking and even let him get another huge stomp off, as I was focused on defeating him as fast as possible. But I did eventually beat him and pick up the guard satellite with a total of 29 deaths. If I got an easy workout, this wouldn't be a problem at all, but it's just my luck to pull the hardest workout possible. Burpees. Words cannot describe how exhausting these were, and I'm not even sure half of these counted. Nevertheless, I got through it and headed on to the next area. The Distant Spring is probably my least favorite area in the game, mostly due to the difficult and annoying enemies that inhabit the area. Body Bulbears, puffy Blowhogs, swooping Snitch Bugs, and the awful yellow Wollywogs are all enemies that I struggled to deal with quite a bit. My goal in this area was to move at a reasonable pace while being cautious of threats. Still recovering from the burpees, I spent the first day collecting the repair type bolt, the interstellar radio, the massage machine, and the gluon drive. I ended the day losing a surprising 19 Pikmin, mostly due to being greedy and trying to rush past some enemies. I'll blame the exhaustion for this one. Luckily, it ended up being 19 jumping jacks, which I consider one of the easier workouts in the bucket, despite the fact that all the exercise was really wearing me down. Heading into day 12, I decided to clear up some enemies I had ignored and suffered the consequences from. I also opened up a lot of paths for the day, only collecting 2 parts being the zirconium rotor and the pilot seat. I only lost 2 Pikmin and pulled jumping jacks again. Look how happy he is. For day 13, I cleared another route to the final parts, grabbing the #2 Ionium jet and properly defeating the armored cannon beetles this time around to collect the bow sprite. Only losing 3 Pikmin, I pulled from the bucket and got jumping jacks again. Quickly heading into day 14, I grabbed the Chronos reactor and UV lamp, leaving the Distant Springs with 1 death being another jumping jack. I think the Pikmin gods were apologizing for the 29 burpees I had been given. Either that or I wasn't shuffling the bucket enough, and I'm going with the Pikmin gods blessed me. With the ship fully upgraded, there was only 1 part left, the last area of the game for the 15th day of the challenge. The final trial is an incredibly small area meant for you to use every Pikmin's advantage to open up a path to the Emperor Bullblacks. In my previous attempt at this challenge, I spent 2 days here, narrowly missing the 15-day mark I wanted to hit, as it's half the time the game actually gives you to beat it. I wanted to finish in time and used every trick I knew, even skipping out on using reds to save a bit of time moving this box with blue Pikmin. With the path being opened, I went back to the base to grab red Pikmin instead of blue, as they do slightly more damage, and walked towards the final boss. I believe that the strategy to defeat the boss is to have yellow Pikmin throw bombs into the mouth of the Emperor to stun him and then attacking him with reds. But the Snaggle style sacrifices yellows, because I don't know how to beat him normally. So I kept stunning and stunning him, and simultaneously myself because I was standing too close. And eventually, the Emperor Bullblacks had fallen, leaving me with the prize of the secret safe, the final part of Pikmin 1. With a final celebration and farewell, I had beaten Pikmin 1. But don't think I forgot about the workouts. I guessed I lost around 10 Pikmin and did crunches to finish off the challenge, with a total of 115 Pikmin lost and finishing in 15 days, which is again, half the time the game gives you to beat it. Thanks for watching. This challenge was pretty weird, but I had a lot of fun making and recording it. If you liked the video, please give it a like or a subscribe or a comment or anything. And who knows, maybe I'll do the other Pikmin someday. Happy the end. I'm never doing this again.